Welcome to the Open Era Podcast. My name is Devang Desai. I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Simon Bushell. A late recording on Sunday evening thanks to Tennis Paradise, Indian Wells, Bush. What a tournament. What a state. What a country.
Jesus Christ. Okay, well, checks in the post at this point, is it not, Dev? 2 weeks in a row that you have been shilling for Tennis Paradise down there in Indian Wells.
Any tournament that can get Grammy-nominated artist Pink in attendance is a big deal to me. So clearly, this is the fifth major.
You find Pink more interesting than Larry Ellison? Is that how you are?
Larry Ellison, Bill Gates, the amount of money involved, the amount of people with money there to only have a defective sound system warmed my heart a bit, Bush, as we had this gathering of the 1% in the desert.
I find it interesting here in Canada, we get the world feed, but just the ads are always an interesting indication of who your target audience is.
Yeah.
And it's just filled brim to brim full of SUV ads. Every single one of them is an ad for an SUV or a truck. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the target audience for tennis, apparently.
SUVs and Rolexes, which, yep. that's what we all just love to buy. So it checks out.
It's a sport for the masses, Dev, is it not?
So, shall we start with the women's side, Bush? Well, I think we'll begin there.
Let's do it. And in honor of March Madness, which in itself is deeply, deeply problematic with the NCAA, I think we're cancelled from all NCAA events, are we not? Just given our history on the Sport Chronicle as well of never being invited to any of these events again. So, whatever.
And let's be honest here. College basketball is kind of bad. I think the truth needs to be said about that.
I think we said this before, right? But a lot of long twos in college basketball. A lot.
Long twos and the love for defense, which usually means no one can hit a shot to save their lives. It's 59-56, but yeah.
A lot of hustle plays, right? Heart and effort. You see a lot of that conversation in this March period. Let's turn our attention to the WTA side, and let's do one by one the final four, Devang. And let's start with the guns from Greece, Maria Sakkari. She made it to the semi-final. She overcame, I think, adversity throughout the week. She had 4 3-setters to get to the semi. She could have gone out multiple times during the course of the week. She didn't. I think she had a lot of people turning heads in her direction and thinking that maybe this was going to be the tournament that she was going to get over the line. It did not happen, but there were positive signs on a middling season so far.
Middling, I think, is fair. It's a shame because I feel like we're watching Maria Sakkari and judging her by her failures more than her successes, and I think that's just kind of where she is in her career. And she's an excellent player, a top 10 WTA player who on a weekly basis is making deep runs. But I think the way she fell to Sabalenka after these tough, gritty 3-set wins, Bush, kind of also is a reminder that perhaps her ceiling is being reached very soon. And she's not going to be able to get into that sphere of your Sabalenkas or your Rybakinas or your Swiateks. And I think that's fine. That's okay. But it is a shame because I think it's this is someone that we enjoy watching, enjoy supporting as a player because we've seen her off the court as well. But there's no shame in being a solid 4, but a distant 4.
Yeah, the question, I guess, that will be asked for her is whether or not that 2021 season will go down as her best season. And that we're looking at her kind of best years in the rear view at this point, which I think is unbelievably harsh if that ends up being the case. And there's plenty of time for her to turn this form around. But as we saw during Breakpoint this year, it's a lot of mental stuff as well with her because she's had so many tough losses to come back from that and continue to fight and want to do the things that are necessary to really compete at the top of the game. It's a tough world, Dev. But I thought one of the most positive signs for her this week was that match against Petra Kvitova because she did not look very good at all through a set and a half and found a way to turn it around, dug in, and then really saw off Kvitova in that final set and looked really good in the process.
Mm-hmm. She did. So she's 27, halfway through her age 27 season, and she's now 10th in the rankings after dropping 3 places. My other concern with Maria Sakkari is, and I will give you that, give it a win, and it was fantastic, and we all know Petra is a big-time competitor, but we're at the verge of seeing Sakkari maybe fall out of this top 10 push, and I wonder if that's a climb she can make again. I feel like the top of the WTA now is solidifying in a way we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, I agree. And the top of the women's game is so strong, as we will come into in a second, that you get the sense to get back into that top 10 is a pretty mammoth achievement.
Tough.
It's pretty tough, yeah. I noticed you said halfway through her age 27 season. I noticed that you didn't go with the hockey terminology and saying that she's a 95er. She's if you want to use that terminology. Yeah,
I refuse to remember that part of the Malcolm Gladwell book when he talked about how the majority of junior hockey players, successful ones, are born early in the years as well. But I remember that for some reason.
Let's turn our attention to the world number 1, who is not now the defending champion at Indian Wells. She lost in the semi-finals to the same player she lost to in Australia, Elena Rybakina, who was the eventual winner of this tournament. That being said, Iga had to play 2 former Grand Slam champions in Bianca Andreescu and Emma Raducanu in the round of 32 and the round of 16. Saw off both of them very easily. Looked like her old self. Rybakina, though, handled her so easily. Like surprisingly easy? Question mark? Probably not at this point, right?
Probably not, but I was still a bit taken aback by watching that. And I think it is because watching Iga kind of dismiss Bianca and Emma Raducanu the way she did, it didn't seem like she was going to be challenged at this tournament until, of course, the semifinals. But the luster is worn a bit off, Bush. And we began the season talking about how it's Iga Swiatek's tour, and we're going to see her kind of wrestle away the majority of titles from her peers. And even after the Australian Open, we saw her kind of restate her claim to the top. But I think this week has definitely served as an eye-opening moment for me, because I think we've gone from Iga Swiatek being the pure number 1 or the clear number 1, and now she's in this conversation with probably 3 players in terms of the top of the game, which I didn't see coming, to be honest. But I think that's maybe on us, because Rybakina and Sabalenka are both players that we've kind of pegged to be able to make this jump, I think. But I didn't see Iga being taken down this clearly, maybe this early in the season.
If you want to circle some stats from this matchup, there's some very worrying signs on first and second serve in terms of this rivalry going forward. 43% win percentage on first serve for Swiatek and just 46% on second serve. Never a good sign when you're winning more points on second serve than on first serve. Rybakina absolutely detonated. And the things that I think Swiatek does well in terms of covering up that weaknesses, using a kick serve, using placement. Rybakina's too tall, too strong, steps into the court, handles it, immediately puts her on the back foot. It's going to be tough to overcome those things, Dev.
I mean, seeing someone hit Iga off the court as well. I mean, it's happened before, but still, when it does, it's quite eye-opening. And I think we've spoken a lot about how Iga has kind of added elements to her game to make her more challenging. But what does this say to you about her chances on hard courts going forward? Because I think we've kind of seen it now where there's a game plan. It's also involving hitting the piss out of the ball, but there's a game plan to beat her on hard courts. And I think clay is clearly still her playground, but on a hard court,
Yeah, I was actually going to touch on that, and I'm glad that you mentioned it, because I think she's going to absolutely dominate this clay court season. I think for all the talk that we have on hard courts here and the rise of Rybakina and Sabalenka and the way that Babs Krejcikova has played this year, I think on clay courts, this is going to be an historic season for Iga Swiatek. She still looks as good as ever, and she is the best clay courter in the world. The only one I think who is going to challenge it is Krejcikova, and I'm really excited for that matchup, and I hope we get it a couple of times on clay this season. But as you mentioned, hard court's the really interesting one, especially this hard court as well in Indian Wells, with ball gate fully in the process. Slow balls, Dev. Slow balls.
The worst court in the world, according to Daniil Medvedev, which I tend to agree with. But yeah, and I would be I would be scared to bet it against Iga on the clay court. So I back you there. But should we get to the final two? Because I think the final could have been better, but the tiebreak to me was a perfect encapsulation of where these two are at.
I think so as well. Should we let's give the winner. We'll do the winner last, and let's talk about the Australian Open champion and Aina Sabalenka. This run that she had to get through was not an easy tournament for her, and she handled business extremely well. I think I would circle that match against Krejcikova. It was excellent. It was really, really good. It was probably one of the best matches of the season, just in terms of game planning and in terms of two form players. Maybe it didn't quite hit the heights that you would expect from those two, but it was still really, really fun. And then she absolutely annihilated Goff. This is becoming a real problem, is it not? Goff being bageled by one of the top three is not a good sign moving forward.
Looking like a small kid out there against some of these players, which in her fairness, she is still quite young. I thought the first few games of this match were setting us up for a pretty just incredible final. But I think we kind of saw the level drop a bit, and we saw Sabalenka kind of go away a bit as well in the second set. But like you mentioned, Bush, an incredible winning streak for her. Someone who I wanted to see develop an aura and have that ability to maybe frighten her opponents before she steps on a court. And I think you're seeing that now, where the consistency is there generally for Aryna Sabalenka. And I know her serve kind of deserted her at critical junctures in the final against Rybakina, but overall, but she's beating herself much less, and with the tools in her game, it's quite hard seeing people beating her on any given day. And seeing someone like Coco Gauff, who's clearly an excellent player and is going to do great things in this game, being reduced to just an also-ran is a scary realization of just how talented Sabalenka is.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are gonna look at that serving performance in the final, and they're gonna say that is just old habits coming back, and that's just her Achilles heel. That it's gonna always be, it's gonna be there in big moments. It did not come up in the Australian Open final. I will say on this one, I think it might have more to do with her opponent than her own serve on this one. Rybakina is such a devastating serve returner, indicated by the fact that I think Sabalenka won about 40% of her points on second serve in this final. Like just nothing, just not getting into those points at all. So I don't know that it's as clear cut as just Sabalenka has the yips in those situations. I think she was probably playing her opponent, and rightfully so as well. When you're playing someone who is as talented as Elena Rybakina is, I don't think there's any shame in this for Sabalenka. Like, this is her first loss of the season. She got to a final. She had a great run. This is a great rivalry across the board. It's just going to be a really good season, Dev.
Yeah. The only thing bad, really, to me was both kits employed by both players.
Oh my God, yeah.
Horrendous. Just the Rybakina's kit, Adidas, what the hell are you doing? What is going on back there?
It kind of looked a little bit like a tub of ice cream, like with all the different colors in it.
They had some markers lying around and some highlighters. I'm like, you know what? We just got to get something in there. So we'll put this together and see if it flies. And I guess the players are at this point saying, you know what? It doesn't matter. We'll put whatever you have. We'll put it on.
Indeed so. Let's talk about our winner, Dev, Elena Rybakina. If, I know it's a big if, the Wimbledon points counted, she'd be the world number 3 right now. Does that not feel quite accurate for where we are in the women's game? With the top 3 being Iga Swiatek, Anya Sabalenka, and Elena Rybakina.
Big time. It feels a bit shameful that she's only 7th right now, to be fair.
She looks and plays to me, to the eye test and just watching over the first few months of the season, like the best player in the world. And that is, I know, somewhat, is that a controversial opinion? It kind of is, right? Just given that Swiatek just is battering people left and right.
Yeah.
Dev, like, is there a situation here where you're going to have Rybakina and Sabalenka maybe losing some stinkers to players that Iga is going to absolutely annihilate, but Iga's going to lose some of these matches on hard courts to those two players? So who does that make the best in the world? It's kind of a fascinating discussion, is it not?
Yeah, and I wonder if Rybakina is getting that big game player mantle bestowed on her, because she produces her best tennis against the best players in the world at a pretty consistent clip. and at a clip that you would say you could trust her in these moments where it's a small list, to be fair. I think that list is now those 3 players, Bush. Like, I don't know if I could go into a do or die match with a Coco Gauff and feel that comfortable, And I think beyond the big 3, if you want to call them that, it gets a bit dicier. Even Jess Pegula, who I think could have been in that conversation, is really not as much of a lock for me as those 3 are. But I think Rybakina is just, you don't usually see someone like Iga get hit off the court like the way she did. And I think the power game she has, the excellent service that she has, it's a combination on these hard courts, even the slower ones like we've seen at Indian Wells. It's deadly. Very few people can keep up.
And I don't think it is just power as well. I think she's improved so much from a point construction perspective and her willingness to rally as well, that she's an incredibly tough matchup. She moves so well for her height and for her build and stature that she's such a tough out. And anytime you have players who are trying to kick balls up to some of these women on court, Elena Rybakina can handle them. Like, really, really easy. It's right in that sweet spot. It's in the hitting zone, and she's able to just tee off on it. She's a really, really tough matchup for a lot of these players, Dev, and it's going to be really interesting to see how long this form continues, and just because, like, I don't know, like she could be at the business end of all 4 Grand Slams, and it wouldn't surprise me by the end of the year.
Not at all. I see some people on tennis Reddit, the bastion of all sanity out there, poking fun at Rybakina's lack of facial expressions or her emotions. But I don't know if you saw her sister go.
Anna Rybakina.
She was into it. That was great.
Living on the edge, Anna Rybakina. She's having a good time for all of us, aren't they? Sweating, railing, as they say in the poker world.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing?
I think so. I think poker is still a thing as well. People are giving her shtick, being like, show a little more, show a little something, show some more passion. But that's not her. And I don't think we need that from her. Clearly, she is just as cool as a cucumber at all times, basically. Or if she's not, she's doing a hell of a job not showing us.
I do appreciate that the same people are yelling at her for that are the same people that are yelling at Anya Sabalenka for grunting too much and making too much noise on court. So you can't win either way.
Exactly. Any other thoughts on the WTA side?
First 1,000 title for Elena Rybakina. Somewhat surprising, is it not? And I think maybe one of the things that needs to be just reminded, Rybakina's 23 years of age. She's not that old. Like, it's one of those things that, yes, the rise has been... It's not like it's been meteoric, has it? Like, she was a really good player. Like, she made the quarterfinals in 2021 at the French Open. So it's not like this came out of nowhere, but she's turned into an incredibly consistent, dominant player with a serve which is among the best on tour. Very, very tough out for anyone who wants to play her for the rest of the season.
It feels like an accurate rise, if that makes sense, Bush. Like a normal rise in the tennis world, as opposed to maybe a teenage wonder kid or a phenom from an early age. This is someone who's put in the hard yards, and maybe it's because she has that Kazakhstani flag beside her name that she doesn't get the same, or she didn't get the same public. I mean, the Wimbledon thing was a debacle and a disgrace, to be fair, but I hope more people are cluing into the fact that she's an excellent player. I mean, some of these shots she was hitting on the run, Bush, that's the other thing. I think we look at her as a taller player, a bigger player, someone who can maybe out-hit her opponent, but she was making some incredible winners on the run, which is an element to her game that makes her such a daunting prospect to play. Full credit to Elena Rybakina, Lena, I guess as we can call her. No, probably not. That's friends only. But so
yeah,
probably
friends only, indeed. Introverts unite if we want to go down that road as well. Seems like she's a big dog person. Seems like... and actually seemed like they were pretty good friends in that speech as well. Yeah. Sabalenka taking the mic to remind everyone that she will beat her next time, which I thought was very funny. I thought Rybakina came across very well, and it's a good rivalry.
Great stuff. All right. That was the WTA side at Indian Wells. When we come back, we talk about the men and Carlos Alcaraz coming up next on Open Arrow. Welcome back to the Open Air Podcast, continuing our March Madness themed look at Indian Wells and looking at the Final Four on both sides of the bracket. We've talked about Elena Rybakina winning the women's section on the men's side. Up against the clock, we weren't quite sure if this final would be done in time, in all honesty, but 19-year-old Carlos Alcaraz has done it again, winning Indian Wells for the first time. Didn't lose a set. Destroyed Daniil Medvedev. Do we start with him here, or do we go in reverse order?
Good question. Let's start in reverse order simply because I want to hold my takes about the color of Carlos Alcaraz's shorts for just a brief second here. Can we talk about Foe just to open this segment? Because he's going to get forgotten amongst all of this in the fact that he, I think, put up a really good week. And someone who I have been extremely harsh on in terms of what I think he's going to be and in terms of how high he can get in the world. He showed more signs again this week that he has the potential to get consistently inside of the world's 15 and remain there. That loss against Danny Medvedev kind of just showed levels, though, in my opinion.
Yeah. Everyone he played up to that point, you could argue he was supposed to beat. Maybe not Cam Norrie, but everyone else, you're like, yeah, he should win. And I think the question is, would he falter in matchups where he is the favorite? And I think in your credit, I think it was a positive week in that sense, but the ceiling might just be that.
And I think that's okay, is it not? Mm-hmm. I think being the world number 14 is pretty all right, considering the career arc that we thought he was going to have. And he's only 25. Like, there's plenty more time and plenty more to come from him. He is a big match player. Unfortunately, he just loses big matches, which is kind of the saddest part.
How many points were between them in that Medvedev match, right? It wasn't like a 20, 30 point thing. I think there was a handful of points that decided that match, right? So I think it's just the margins are so small for him.
I think it is, and I know how this is going to sound, and I don't mean it to be disrespectful. I kind of want him to be more of an asshole on court. Like, I kind of want him to just like make it disgusting in some of these matches because he's such a nice dude. And players like playing against him and like spending time around him. But I think sometimes you got to just like go a little bit more, right? Like in the sense of
screw, yeah.
Just like a little bit of needle, a little bit of grit, and just like make it piss your opponent off. Try and get under their skin. Use some of the gamesmanship. Because I don't know, Dev. It's one of those that you can't see a path through him winning some of these matches without him doing some additional stuff here.
Just watching Carlos Alcaraz drop shot his opponent to death in a final where he wasn't quite sure if his opponent was 100% healthy. And that's maybe that needle you need, to do that, to do anything you can do to win. And I think Alcaraz has kind of shown that innate ability he has. And I think it's fair. I mean, the killer instinct, quote unquote, and I think is a common trope that is often used to a disturbing degree, might be just a thing for Francis at this point. But to be in a Final Four with these three other guys, I mean, that's pretty good company, right? And I think he's probably overperforming expectations. And when I look at someone like Felix, I wonder if it's the opposite, where he's not getting the most out of his ability as consistently as Francis is, even though they might not have the same talent level.
Well, speaking of someone who is too nice, do you want to talk about Jannik Sinner for a second here?
Yeah.
The second of our Final Four. I think one of the matches of the week was Sinner Fritz, which was really fun. Two players who are just incredibly enjoyable to watch on court. You're just watching two elite athletes doing nutso things on a tennis court, and you're reminded, oh yeah, like both of these are just incredible. Like they're just surefire top tenors, just best in the world at what they do. And then is this fair? He kind of didn't really turn up against Alcaraz.
Look like it.
And
sort of.
Actually,
yeah.
let me rephrase that. I thought he played really well in that first set. And then it kind of just fell apart. Kind of looks like he lost belief.
Is that not the thing, though? Is that not the book so far on young Jannik?
He's too nice, Dev. He's too damn nice.
It's bizarre calling a young big man like this feeble, but I hate this matchup for him. Like, it doesn't look like he has the same reservoir of energy that Charlie does. And I don't know if that's actually true or not, because I think fitness wise he's a freak like many of these guys are, but it doesn't seem like he has the same engine size.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the difference. That's kind of where I think you see the levels emerge when we talk about maybe the tiers, or like who's in these competitive rungs, and who can hang with a Novak Djokovic long enough in a match that might require you to be out there for 4 to 5 hours. Like, that list is very damn small, and I don't know if Yannick is there yet. I think he's kind of a bit off it, to be honest. I know he's had that U.S. Open match against Alcaraz as well, which was an epic, but I need to see it more often.
He does look noticeably bigger this season. He looks like he has put in some real work physically.
That Berea Pasta deal paid off, because he's just hammering Pasta now at all times, clearly.
As he should, right? Take advantage of it, lean into it. That serve is a problem. It's just a problem for him to be a top 5 player.
How is it not better? How is it not better?
Well, I don't know. Like, I will give him a little bit of a break on this, in the sense that he's made significant changes to it, technically. And it takes a long time to do that stuff at top level. You barely get an off season. So you're having to do this work in season as well. What are we since he has started making changes to it? About a year? Is that roughly right? It takes a bit of time. So I've always said this, and I'm as president of the Yannick Sinner fan club, right?
Sin Nation, yeah. Sin Nation.
Exactly. I've got the badges, got the blazer, got the hat, got the shades. What else? What else do you have?
Pop collar, multiple pop collar shirts on. 2 to 3 at the same time.
The fox letterhead.
Puka shell necklace as well.
I have said always, and I believe in this, is that I always thought there was going to be a time that a corner was turned and he was just going to start hoovering up titles left and right. He was going to take a leap where he was just, number 3 to 1 in the world and be competitive right at the back end of Grand Slams consistently. And everyone was terrified of him. And he was just a walking ticket to semifinals and finals based on his consistency. I'm not sure anymore, Dev. I'm beginning to doubt myself a little bit of whether or not I believe that prophecy is going to be fulfilled here.
Yeah, it's tough, because the chances are he's going to end up running into these same guys at the business end of tournaments, the big ones, right? Like, I don't think there's a path to a Wimbledon or to a U.S. Open without playing a Carlos Alcaraz or a Daniil Medvedev or a Novak Djokovic or a Rafael Nadal.
It's the difference, isn't it, right?
Yeah, I don't like his chances in those matches.
No, it's the difference between him being where he currently is as the world number 11 and being the world number 1. I mean, quite simply, that's the expectation that I think... Wait, do you have that expectation, or am I just like putting words in your mouth? Because I think I definitely have that expectation.
You did. I mean, I need to see a bit more jam, as they say in the UK. A little more metal from him. And that seems a bit ridiculous to say. Like I mentioned, that US Open match was an epic, but give me a bit more. I'm not ready to say that I think he's a potential number 1, but I understand why you were comfortable saying that about him, Bush, because I think there's few people who have his skill set. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where his ceiling is, but I'm not sure it's as high as you think it is.
So I guess as a transition point, and talking of phoning it in, let's talk about this final that just took place. And let's perhaps turn our attention to, should we call this an exhibition final? Does that seem reasonable? It was nice of them to turn up and play a charity event for this final. No, that's way too harsh.
I think we can call this an open mic night for Daniil Medvedev after in this trophy celebration. Just doing a tight 10-minute set, killing it, getting everyone to laugh. Did a great job.
He looks fantastic with the beard and the longer hair. Keep it going forever, man.
He thanked the court after getting just demoed, which I think is the most perfect thing in the world.
Snaps a 20 match winning streak. Is that right? Was it 19? It might have been 20.
Something like that, yeah.
It was a good week for him. He definitely did not like being here. Did not like this surface, did not like being around. And I think that was indicated in this final. Obviously, he's playing against an incredible player. I think you got the sense as well from some of his interviews that he was carrying an injury that he did not really want to go too in depth about. And it certainly looked like the case in this final that he was not really the same player that he was throughout the course of the week. I think highlighted by his, should we say, a Houdini act to get across the line against Alexander Zverev, which was obviously very cathartic for everyone involved, including Danny Medvedev himself. But yeah, we'll just chalk this one as a bad day at the office and just assume that there's maybe an injury involved and that he just couldn't wait to get out of the desert and that hard court specifically.
Hated the court. I think Carlos drop shotted him 3 times in a row, all for winners. So clear maybe that he was ready to call it. Like I mentioned, though, interesting comments from Med. Because if we're not going to read too much into the tennis, because it was so one-sided, he called Carlos the most respectful guy on the tour, which I find fascinating as a 19-year-old.
What he is he not? Have we ever heard anything bad about Charlie?
I'm trying to think, and I don't think so. But it's just,
has he put a foot wrong since he's been on tour?
It's one of those things that I find fascinating because there is that Nadal-esque thing to him as well, where personally, if I was playing them, I wonder if I'd be like, yo, Rafa, like, calm down a bit. Like, we get it. This is your whole thing, and relax a bit. And you see shades of that in Alcaraz's game. But the fact that it doesn't rattle his opponents or bother them is pretty fascinating to me, because I think that's a short list of people who are like this, you know?
One of the commentators on the world feed was, I think it might have been Gilles Simon. I think Gilles Simon was doing commentary, who actually enjoyed this week as well. He was basically referring to the fact that Carlos Alcaraz on TV does not give a good indication of what Carlos Alcaraz is like in person. Is that you do not get a sense of the athleticism and the absolute speed that the ball comes off the racket, and that it's something that you can only really experience in person. Like in the same way that, well, I guess from a different perspective, you get the sense of how someone like Federer and Nadal are. Like those things come across aesthetically. Same with Novak Djokovic, right? You know what that stuff is. But the pop of the ball and just like the sheer rawness of physical energy that comes across from Alcaraz is only really believed to be seen of just how quick he is around the surface, how quick he is going forward, and then just how quickly he can turn defense into offense. Like it's just, it's devastating.
Back to world number 1, which is, rightfully, I think, a big deal. A big deal as well, considering why Novak is not being allowed to play and the fact that he's not going to be able to play at Miami. And we have this chance for Charlie to make some hay here and maybe do a sunshine double. I think the list of people who have won Indian Wells, Miami, and Madrid since 2009 is a short one. It's Novak, Federer, and now Alcaraz. I think the reason Medvedev was saying he's so respectful is how many people he says hi to on a daily basis, which I imagine is a lot of people coming up to him. And small things like that go a long way. On the Med thing, Bush, he remarked about the courts, saying, I had a pretty toxic relationship with the courts here, a lot of love, hate moments. I would like to thank this court. I was giving it a hard time, so it gave me a hard time also. Rolled an ankle, the thumb, but it gave me a chance to finish this tournament. So I think, yeah, clearly the ankle, the thumb, not everything at 100% for Daniil Medvedev, but
the brain. He was not having it this week, was he, in that final?
He wasn't. But he's putting together a pretty impressive season, which I don't think we saw coming after the way last year ended.
4 finals in a row, 20-match win streak, not a million miles away from being world number 1 again. He's definitely back, Devang. And you're asking the question now, admittedly, it's March. He has to be the favorite for the US Open, or at least one of the favorites, right? And it's one of those things that I'm genuinely quite excited to see if the field can finally, if you would rather pick the field than Novak Djokovic at a Grand Slam, the US Open might be the first one that happens at.
Well, we were saying on the WTA, there's a top 3 or a big 3 that we feel comfortable picking. What's the deal on the ATP? Because I feel like this is not really a new conversation. It's going to be one of three people, probably. I don't know if I'm going to open it up to a Daniil again, even though he was in this club not too long ago. But I'm looking at the top 10. I'm looking at the top 20. We know a lot about these guys. There's not many more secrets left.
That's true. That is true. Danny and Carlos. Charlie and Danny. As we're calling him now, on first name terms.
Dan. We got to call him Dan Medvedev because it really takes the sting out of it.
We're doing the modern sports journalist thing, right? Yeah. So what a performance by Danny. Like, for fuck's sake, man. You don't know these people. Be a bit more professional. Anyway, the thing that's going to be really fascinating is to see how these two do against Djokovic in Grand Slams this year. Because they're both capable of beating him. Very, very capable. I'm excited, Dev.
Me too. You know who else I think is capable of beating him at a slam? That I'm not just trolling rampantly, but I think Taylor Fritz has it in him to pull off something big this year, even though he had a tough loss at this tournament. I think Taylor Fritz is in that he could take someone out huge level that, I mean, changes frequently. I think I might have had Felix in that conversation a few weeks ago, but I think that's changed.
I mean, you feel free to die on that hill, Dev.
I feel vindicated. I was on the Fritz bandwagon for a long time, and now there's too many people. The bandwagon is literally overflowing, so I'm comfortable with where I'm at. Sinner, though, I'd be less comfortable.
Who's going to win? Who's going to get to a slam final first? Taylor Fritz, Jannik Sinner, Felix Auger-Aliassime. Out of those three.
Wow. I'm picking Fritz. I'm earnestly picking Fritz, not trolling.
And that brings us to the end of this segment, so I don't have to make a choice about that.
You would have to stick with Sinner, right? This is part of your mandate.
Which Grand Slam is it though? Like, I don't know where.
Zero.
It got to be the French, right? Surely it has to be the French.
Really? I even pick Felix ahead of him. How about that?
At the French? Surely not.
yeah. I'm backing it. I'm backing that.
It's an outrageous claim.
We'll leave it there. But I'm that's how down I am on Sin Nation and the Sin Boys. All right. That was the ATP. Carlos Alcaraz doing it again. The Phenom. When we come back, it's Parting Shots. Hope you enjoyed.
Welcome back to the Open Air Podcast. Devang, it is time for Parting Shots, and it is time for us to have a review of coaches being mic'd up. Did you enjoy this during the course of the week? I had a blast listening to them. It was a bit weird. I had some sensory things that I was struggling with as someone's walking around and I'm hearing someone muttering. I'm like, where the fuck is this coming from? Am I going insane? But no, it was the coaches talking to their respective players. I thought this was a welcome addition, and I think this actually makes the game a lot more accessible and more interesting.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I guess the one, not fear, but you remember, I think it was Pam Shriver remarking on Rybakina's coach maybe being too much or like bullying her and not being a positive influence. I think we get a lot of glimpses into these relationships and we only get like small snippets. So I feel like it could be easy maybe to make some grand assumptions based on what we hear during a given match, but overall, I'm a big fan of it. It's fascinating. I wonder, have you looked? Like, is there a commonality between the good coaches? I find like there's basically not being a nutbag is basically the first key.
Well, I don't know. Like there was
Rybakina's coach is actually probably a bad example of that because you could say he's the opposite of calm and collected.
There was a couple of things that I thought that I heard that Darren Cahill said to Jannik Sinner that I was like, huh? It's a bit harsh, isn't it? Seems a bit weird. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was just being a little too sensitive to some of this stuff, to my precious Jannik.
I wonder what, does that change them? Like when they know they're mic'd up, does that alter how they act?
It has to be, right?
In some cases it does, yeah.
Surely, yeah.
They've got to shelve the more sociopathic things that they would otherwise tell them.
I'm so looking forward to Mortagalo. I can't wait, Dad. It's going to be so good. So good.
God. Oh my God.
Good job, Steph. Good job. Keep fighting.
just holding a lighter, clutching a lighter, and lighting it repeatedly, saying, "You need the spark. You need the spark, Steph."
Right now, Steph, this moment. How many more platitudes can I do in a single time period? Anyway, let's move on. Keep an eye for that because it's going to be fun. I hope they repeat this throughout the rest of the season, and I hope it becomes more a part of how the tennis is presented because I had a really good time with it. Something else I had a good time with as well is the graphic which appeared this week to show Davidovich Fokina showing the number of cats that he owned. Graphic on screen showed 2. Fokina claps back, saying, in fact, that he has 4 cats. 4 cats, Steph.
Where are the fact checkers? That's a lot. That's quite a few. But he's all about that. I have to applaud him.
We both work in marketing, kind of, adjacently.
Mm-hmm.
Who got given the assignment to figure out how many cats he had? And who approved this? That's what I want to know.
This is a quick IG scan where two cats were clocked, and they're like, all right, we're set to print this. We can go live.
This looks good. You want 2 sources? No, we're good. Don't need a second source on this one.
It's a verified IG account. We're comfortable with 2 here, and clearly they're exposed. He could have just adopted them though, because I know he does work with that adoption organization. So it's possible that he's added 2 cats since this claim was made.
Are we saying that the verified Instagram account is a first source? Like it's not secondary sources, so it's straight from the horse's mouth on this one. That's fine.
It's true. I also feel like Eurosport probably devoted or made hay off this now more than getting it right the first time. So it's a false flag operation. They knew he had 4 cats the whole time. It's a conspiracy.
Oh God, they went down that route. Deliberately did it wrong to create content.
You're seeing it more and more. It's a bit sickening, but you're seeing it more and more.
We're coming for you, Eurosport. We're coming for you. Good content during the course of this week was the handshake between Holger Rune and Stanislav Wawrinka. There is beef here, previous beef. The beef is ripe, if you will. What the hell happened here, Devang? Was Rune trying to be funny?
No, I think last year Stan called him a baby, right? In Paris. I think that's what happened. So Holger Rune holding a huge grudge. Get that. Check that. I kind of get it though. It's weird. I'm not going to support him at all. And I think if Nick Kyrgios is supporting you in a beef, you're usually on the wrong side. But I can understand why this youngster, like, you know what, old man, I don't appreciate you calling me a baby. I'm a full grown boy now. And look at me now. Look at me now, Dad. Look at me now.
Look at me now. I can lose and be a prick at the same time.
The other thing that I like, Stan's like, the locker room reputation thing. All of these guys must be considered pricks, right? In the locker room, like who is? It's like Carlos Alcaraz is nice. Novak is liked. End of list. Like what else? What else do we have here?
Rooney had himself an adventure this week, did he not? It was quite entertaining to watch that matchup. I don't know. Seems like a bit of a prick. As we have covered numerous times on this podcast, so we don't need to retread old ground on this one. Something that was also doing the rounds during the course of this week was some photos that made it to the tennis Reddit, Dev, that hallowed place that you mentioned already. I thought I saw this floating on Twitter as well, on the few chances that I do to go onto Twitter. Not sure what the source of this originally was, so let's not credit it to the tennis subreddit. Edmund Raducanu, the difference in stature between 2022 and 2023 is quite astonishing. She has packed on some serious muscle in a year's period of time. And it does go to show you, doesn't it? These players are still incredibly young. And the growth physically and the stature that comes in that space of time is quite astonishing. So
she's been working with Jez Green, correct?
That's right. Yeah, who was, I believe, responsible for the growth that Andy Murray had as well, right? Physically.
Right. It's massive change. And it's also like, when do we not see these players, you know? Like the fact that they're on tour all the time and throughout the season, it's remarkable that you can find the time to get this in, to put in those hard yards and make a huge change to your stature. It's paid off too. She looks really good. I know Iga took care of her, but I thought I saw promising signs from her yet again this week.
I thought so as well. Yeah, and you have started to get the sense, have you not, through the last couple of weeks and started this season, where it's like, okay, all right, She's looking like a top 50 player, which is, we'll start there and move forward. And I think that's a perfectly good place to be at.
Something to build on. Yeah.
Dev, let's have a quick chat about celebrity sightings at Indian Wells. The aforementioned Pink with an exclamation mark. Who was your favorite sighting this week, and why was Pink there so much? This is the question that I had. Multiple days.
No, I don't know. I think she's doing a residency somewhere, and Las Vegas is not that far, so possibly that's why. But
a residency? What do you mean? What is that?
She performs like every night for like 2 months in Las Vegas, kind of thing.
Like an Elvis situation?
Yeah, exactly. Like Celine Dion has done.
Is that still a thing?
It is, yeah. Britney Spears had one.
Really? I didn't know this was still a thing.
I was remarking to myself, I cannot remember a Pink song. What was the big Pink's hit?
So what? That seems to.
No, come on. What About Us?
What About Us? Yeah, that seems reasonable.
See, these are all just generic words, though. Like this could be anything. This could try this. Like, do you know what these things are? Anyways, not to disparage Pink, but she was not. I'm not directing my ire towards Pink Bush. I think the people, like Larry Ellison, not a good dude. Not a good dude at all. And it's like him and all of his friends here at this tournament. So I think Pink was arguably the best thing in the crowd.
Definitely. I would take Pink a million times over seeing close-ups of Bill Gates and Larry Ellison. Absolutely.
Isn't it quite rich that a tournament ran by the founder of Oracle could not get proper Hawkeye to work or the audio to work in some of the biggest matches? Like, isn't that not just...
Well, here's the deep dark secret about all of big tech. It's all kind of shit, Dev.
Secrets and lies. Secrets and lies, yeah. It's true.
I just wanted to touch on the doubles this week. Barbara Krejcikova and Katerina Yakova continue to dominate. Again, dominate. Although apparently this is their first win at Indian Wells. I didn't realize that. I thought they'd won it before. Anyway, that was cool. Also cool, did you see the story on the men's side? It was won by Rohan Bopanna, oldest man in doubles to win Masters 1000, 43 years of age, winning over the world number one? Yeah, it was Koloff is world number one, right? I think he is anyway.
Do you know who had that record before Rohan?
That is on the men's side, right? It's a good question. I can do this.
Canadian is a hint.
Well, it's Daniel Nestor.
It is. Big Dan Nestor.
So happy about that. Pluck that one out of thin air.
If Charlie is the nicest, most respected guy on the tour, I wonder if Rohan might be second, though, because he seems to get on with everyone. I know he's pretty tight with Chapo as well. So cool to see for him and Matthew Ebden. I believe Matthew Ebden was part of that Special K final where the country of Australia disowned the other pair of players. So good to see him doing well.
Cool story. 43 years of age and still doing it. That's awesome to see. And let's, I guess, close parting shots with this story of Coco Gauff appearing in a CW show. So, All American Homecoming, I have not seen, but I will say this. I loved the CW growing up. I watched a disgusting amount of their programming. So really? I might check this out.
What? What? One Tree Hill? What were you watching on the CW?
I mean, come at me, bro. I absolutely watched One Tree Hill here.
I said Chad Michael Murray's in a new Canadian show now that is being heavily promoted. And I'm like, what year is this?
Don't come on this podcast and pretend like you didn't watch One Tree Hill. Oh, I guess you watched One Tree Hill, man. Yes, you absolutely did.
I had a huge crush on Sophia Bush, I believe was her name. So yeah, no, I can't lie. But I wasn't watching the CW live though, unless maybe there was cartoons on it. So I think you are on an island here for your love of the show. This show sounds a bit strange though to me because it's about sports teens, right? In Beverly Hills.
Sure, sounds good to me.
Sports teens in Beverly Hills. But yeah, Coco is going to be a new student at this high school. So tune in alongside Simon, who loves the CW still.
Look, I grew up watching Smallville. I grew up watching.
Wow. I should have known. I should have known you were a CW head. It all adds up now.
What others were CW shows? Vampire Diaries. That was a show, right?
Don't come at me. Don't look for support here. You could have made anything up there. You could have said anything.
90210. That was great. Enjoyed that as well. The 100. Enjoyed that.
Just keep listing off CW shows to close out this week.
And my 2 challenges remaining is the entirety of CW's programming. Let's get to 2 challenges remaining, Deb. Save us from ourselves. Do you have anything non-tennis related?
Yeah, I'm recording this podcast in our new apartment. So the inaugural episode. Moving is stressful, but ran into a lot of kind-hearted people who helped us along the way. So the world is mostly terrible, but the kindness of random people and strangers is it's always nice to encounter.
That will be on the next Open Era t-shirt. We'll make sure that we find that slogan there. It's a nice level of cynicism/optimism as we go into the 2023 calendar
special
year.
Sauce, yep. Special
Absolutely.
Sauce.
I'll wish solidarity to the rioting, burning down people of the country of France. Good luck to you, watching from afar, and absolutely blame Macron. So, good luck to them.
The not big fans of the retirement age being pushed down, eh? Or pushed up, sorry.
Pushed up. What's the retirement age in Canada? Probably like 81 or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 99. It's 99, and then you might be able to buy a home, but probably not. Probably not.
We're not retiring. What are we talking about, Dev? This is not happening.
Oh, God. Yeah.
65.
No. That one, is it 65? No.
You can start receiving at the age of 60 or as late as the age of 70. That's not happening, is it? Let's be honest. That's definitely getting taken away by the time we get to that age, isn't it? Oh, look, we've got too much money that we're spending. We're just going to have to get rid of this pension stuff. That's what's going to happen.
I will say, few nations have the stones the French do when it comes to this kind of stuff and protesting. So full credit to them, because I don't know if we would be doing this.
I wish the UK had some of this at some point, right? A week removed from when we were talking about passing literal like Nazi level policy that should have people rioting in the streets. It's good to see France actually doing so.
Big time. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you, as always, for joining us this week. If you like the show, a rating or a review wherever you get this podcast would be wonderful. We're also on twitter.com/openerapod, where we're tweeting about tennis all the time. We're on patreon.com as well. Discord was bumping this week with Indian Wells Talk. Always fun jumping in there. You can help us make this show as well by supporting us at patreon.com/Open Era. For producer Greg on the ones and twos, and for Simon, thank you so much for listening to Open Era. We'll talk to you next week.